Welcome to the Drake Shake, a polar podcast hosted by seasoned Antarctica expedition guide Neil Drake. With over 10 seasons guiding and 1,000 days spent on the ice, Neil will be joined by fellow guides and industry experts to share their years of experience and knowledge to help you make the most informed decision when planning your once-in-a-lifetime adventure. From picking the right itinerary to deciding when to go, we will cover it all. The Drake Shake is brought to you by Antarctica Travel Group and letsgopolar.com. Now, here's your host, Neil Drake, with this week's episode.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the newest episode of the Drake Shake podcast. My name is Neil, and I'll be your host. And today I'm joined by my co-host, Nikki. Nikki, in and out of quarantine, freedom at last. Here we are.
Freedom. It's amazing. I'm back outside. I'm back in the streets. Things are good. I'm in Boston right now, which is where I was born, and I'm crashing with my cousin. It's just been a super, super fun time. I love being outside. Outside's great. I love outside.
Well, I've seen your stories, and you definitely feel like you've gotten released from prison. You've been partying a little bit, having some fun. So I am super excited because we have Ida Oslon today. And Woo! Ida, we're going to go into our cold openers in a little bit, and we're going to introduce you here in a little bit. You want to say hi just really briefly because we're going to jump into what I think is going to be kind of fun. So we're going to do something a little different today. So Ida, just say hi. Where are you at?
Hello, everyone.
Ida, we're
back
going
in
to do
Sweden.
something. You just had a crazy season too. You've been on the move. I think you told me that you've had 10 days off in the last 6 months.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, since November.
Jesus,
so now I deserve the fun and the happy times.
Oh, that's amazing. You and Ryan, who's your partner, you guys are just, you're rock star expedition guides, and you're workhorses, that's for sure. We're going to get into that in a second, but we're going to do something very different today to start this episode off. Because every episode we've recorded with our guests so far, we've already known the topic ahead of time. Mm-hmm. And so far, we have not discussed with Ida what this episode is going to be about. We don't even know yet. And that's because, one, is we have still so much left to talk about, but also because Ida is one of the most seasoned expedition leaders, expedition guides, polar explorers. She lives in Svalbard, from Sweden. She's been in Antarctica for longer than I have. And we'll talk about how you were a guide on a trip that I was a passenger on when I first started going down, and your partner, Ryan, was a guide on my very first trip. That's how we know each other. We're going to let you pick the episode topic today. That's the
surprise.
That's what we're going to do. Surprise. Yeah. Oh my God. The pressure I can see it is mounting on her. I'll give you a little background. This is still season 1 of the Drake Shake podcast, and season 1 is all about planning the trip. Things you should know before you make the planning process complete. Season 2 will be the preparation stage, right? So this is like season 2 is going to be packing, getting to and from Ushuaia or Punta Arenas, travel insurance stuff like that. Once you've already booked your trip, what are the things we got to start to consider? We're going to, this season we're still working on is all about pre-booking. What are we looking for? Ship sizes, which companies, we've done an episode on all that kind of stuff. So we still have a lot of topics that we need to talk about, and we can give you a couple suggestions, but we know that you can talk about everything because you are so knowledgeable and experienced that I wasn't even worried about preparing for this. And for people at home that think these shows are scripted and think that we go through a lot of preparation, we don't. These shows are literally just me and a bunch of people from the industry with a lot of knowledge and expertise just having conversations. That's what this is all about. So couple things that we could give you. I could throw out some suggestions. You could pick one. One being the Drake Passage definitely deserves an episode at some point. It's something that people are worried about, whether they should skip it or sail it. And having worked on so many different ships, you can kind of discuss a little bit about, we can kind of go over ships and stabilizers and ship sizes and stuff. We could talk about sort of the ship size as a whole. We could talk about Arctic stuff. We just did an Arctic overview episode. We could talk about Svalbard only because that's like your bread and butter. Mm-hmm. What else can we talk about? What are you thinking? What do you want to talk about?
Yeah.
What do I want to talk about? Well, actually, but I like the idea about the different sizes on the ship and maybe the drag. Maybe that could be a good thing. If not, Svalbard, it always is something close to
But when we're ready to do the Svalbard episode, we're going to probably have you and Ryan back. So that's
cool. Yeah, do that.
Yeah. Or even Vida Brandt. Vida Brandt would be really good to bring in. He's so funny, you and Vida. So
we met him earlier. So yeah.
If you're cool with doing Drake Passage and ship size, like that's a good one, I think, right? Because that's a huge part of the planning process, right?
Yeah.
Before we do jump into that, we have a little, did you say ick?
What is it? No,
Did you say
I said,
ick?
No, I said, like I'm so like an excited,
You said ick.
I'm excited. I did not say ick, and I will prove it in editing.
Ida, I like to start every episode with a cold opener. You get it? Cold, polar, Antarctica.
Because it's a polar.
Yeah.
Because it's cold.
Of course,
because they're cold
opener.
places.
Let's talk about the first time you and I met. That was when? Do you remember when that was?
Was it 15? Was it 16?
Yeah, I think so.
15,
I think it was 15.
Yeah,
I think it was the 15,
15.
16. No, it was 15 because it was the 15, 16 season, and it was that October 15. It was like the October departure.
Yeah, I think it was like 20th of October or something like that. Like we had an early trip that year. I remember. Yeah.
For as many trips as you do, that's a great memory because it was unique. And we talk about that expedition on this show a lot because that was the South Georgia Falklands only trip.
Yes, it was only. And that's still one of my best trips. It's still an amazing trip because of just the Falklands and South Georgia.
I say it all the time. I always say that to people that to this day, between the two of us, we've probably made over 300 southern voyages between the two of us. Probably 40, 50, or 60 each somewhere around there to South Georgia.
Yeah.
That trip stood out. You know what stood out about that trip? That photo I took of you, and I can't wait till we can start posting video. That's still one of the best photos that I've ever taken in Antarctica. You looked like this freaking...
Yeah, I had the fur thing as well on. I remember we went in St. Andrews Bay. I remember we had crossed the river even, and I remember even where it was.
And it's so wild that I went from, we talk about this all the time, my first 3 trips to Antarctica, I was a guest. I was a passenger. The first one I ever did was a classic Antarctica trip. Your partner, Ryan, was an expedition guide on there. And he was the one who was like, saw my photography, he saw my curiosities. And he's like, dude, if you ever come back, you got to come back and do South Georgia. And I didn't have the money to do that. So I started getting myself in there, like trying to get working in the industry. And I did this whole like onboard workshops for photography to exchange for trips and promoting them on my Instagrams. And then I got on that South Georgia trip. And then that's when you and I met. And I was just a passenger and then you were a guide. And then now what's next for our relationship 10, 11 years later? You are now going to be one of the expedition guides for Terra Nova. Like it's just such a...
No.
Cool. That's exciting.
It's so cool. Yeah. How small world it is in one way. It's so amazing.
It's crazy. It's really, it's full circle. It's one of those full circle moments. And it's been awesome. It's been awesome to see you and Ryan kind of move around the industry and just kick ass every step of the way. So we love you. We're stoked to have you on the show. Let's jump into it. The Drake Passage. Drake Passage and the ship sizes. I don't even know. Scale from 1 to 10. What's the worst Drake Passage you've ever seen?
Well, I would say if it just comes to seeing the Drake Passage, then we had 17-meter waves. That's the highest we have done.
Wow.
So then on the bridge was 16 meters high. So the waves were on the windows above there. Like the waves came that high. That's the highest wave heights I've been to. But I wouldn't still say that that's my worst Drake though. Because this was a great ship that had stabilizers. The shape of the bow was different than on another ship I was on that was then smaller, not much smaller technically, but just have a different features, different bow, different way of cutting the waves. And if I was in just 10-meter waves with that one, that was scary almost. And it was being on the bridge, holding on, and you were like, right, hold on, they're saying on the bridge. And you're like, whoa, and you went, So it is depending a lot on what kind of ship you're on and what you're choosing, if you're afraid or having respect for the Drake.
And I hate to sound snooty or I hate to sound elitist, but I feel like today's modern travelers to Antarctica have it a lot easier than it was when we first started working in this industry because all the ships these days, I think, and most of the old legacy ships with terrible stabilizers, they're all kind of phased out. There's a couple left, right? There's a handful.
Yeah.
If they even worked. I remember I was part of the launch of the Hondius and we had one stabilizer working and the ship had just come out of the yards and we're just kind of like brand new ship, 2019, right out of the yards. And we had one working stabilizer isn't doing anything. But no, the Drake Passage is definitely something that is a concern for almost everybody who goes down there. Some people embrace it. And I fully support the embracing of the Drake Passage. I really think that it's equally half the adventure of visiting Antarctica.
Part of the journey. Yeah, it's definitely part of the journey to get to Antarctica. When you're then on there, it's also not just about briefings and lectures and you're sitting on a ship, so much more it's so much wildlife there as well. I mean, the albatrosses, when they come in closer to the ship, it's phenomenal. There's so much good stuff on that journey down, and experience that. I think you should before getting down to Antarctica as well, to really notice how far it is to get to the end of the world, pretty much.
We have a little quote or blurb in our pre-embarkation brochure that we've built, or it's like just kind of like the pre-embarkation package, kind of like what to expect during each phase of the trip. And it says right there on the Drake Passage one, it says, your trip doesn't start when you arrive in Antarctica. It starts when you step foot on board and get to the Drake because of the wildlife. Yes, there's going to be even just dolphins just leaving the Beagle Channel. There's penguins on Penguin Island leaving the Beagle Channel. There's whales, humpbacks breaching in the Beagle. Like it's awesome. Nikki, you've done the Drake
just once.
You were on once each way, there and back?
Nope. No, because the only trip I've done to Antarctica was the South Georgia route.
That's right.
So
how was your Drake?
It was not that bad, but our expedition leader told us that it was bad enough that we could comfortably go out and buy those shirts that said, I survived the Drake. I would say it was like a 7 out of 10 as far as rough. Like if you put down a glass, it slid across the bar. But we were all, maybe because at that point we were already, 12 days, 13 days into the journey. So no one really got seasick because I think at that point we all had our sea legs and our sea stomachs.
We used to measure the severity of the Drake before all these modern stabilizers. We measured the severity of the Drake based off of whether or not soup was being served. That was it.
Yeah.
And I think there was no...
And you knew when you then went to the dining room, if the cloth on the table was a little bit wet, then you knew also, because then you put the glass, you didn't glide as much. That was the way in the old days too.
I always think it's cute when people realize when they're like coming up the stairwells, when there's always like the vomit bags are then laid out in all the handrails around the ship. Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's when you're like, oh, things are about to go down.
Yeah. And then sometimes, depending on the ship, we're tie this all in with ships, that there's always some of the older ships that were converted from research vessels or from
ferry
science. Yeah, that were converted. They never really they weren't planning for the Drake. So a lot of times the ship that we met on, for example, the Sea Spirit, the lecture theater was in the bow of the boat, like in the low bow of the boat. What do we call it? The vomit theater, or there was a bunch of nicknames for it, right?
Yeah.
And then the hard part is that you have to attend these mandatory briefings when we're sailing in the Drake Passage. Nowadays, all the ships got smart. The lecture theaters are either aft, they're midship, like forget the stabilizers, just the overall layouts of the ship.
And it's recordings today as well, so you can watch it in your room on the bed.
Yeah. The modern way of traveling through the Drake has definitely improved it for everybody on board, because it's fatiguing to the crew, it's fatiguing to the guides, it's fatiguing to the captain and the bridge. So it's better for everybody. And I get it, like it's super fun. But also, what about the morale that is built up when you're on the ship going through the Drake? Like if you do have a rough Drake, and I'll say this, everybody wants a Drake Lake. They want a Drake Lake. They want a Drake Lake. I feel in my heart of hearts, you should have a Drake shake going down and a Drake Lake coming back.
I agree. Yeah. I agree. And some people want the Drake. Yeah.
People do, right? They're like, I want to see it. And I love that attitude. This is because, there's so much we can go on about it, right? One being, you get to witness what the early explorers went through in wooden ships without Gore-Tex, without muck boots and navigation and taking celestial readings, no stabilize. Like, you get to see what Shackleton and Crean and all of these guys went through in the early days, right? That's a huge part of it. I think that's really awesome.
Then people understand a little bit as well. Yeah, it's the wild waters, and it shouldn't be too easy to get down to Antarctica. And that's why it wasn't discovered earlier, because of all these things. And I think that's part of the journey and that they should do.
And then there's, like you mentioned, the wildlife. There's the pride of it. There's also my favorite feeling, no matter how many times I've been down, especially when I bring groups and I bring my friends or I bring my family, is that feeling of getting through the Drake. And then you're usually asleep the night of the second Drake night, and you wake up and you open your curtains. It's just like, boom, Antarctica is in your face, right? It's not like what people are imagining, where it's like land ho, and they can see it from the distance and it slowly starts to approach the ship. It's usually not like that unless you make it to the Shetlands on the second Drake day. Then it's kind of could be like that. But the average Drake crossing, you will see nothing but sea, nothing but ocean and birds. and then you're going to wake up the next morning and you're going to be in a protected cove, literally surrounded by mountain peaks. It is, I think, to me, the most rewarding feeling of making it to Antarctica. That to me is just, that's
that
kind of wrapped it up.
Yeah, that landscape is beyond anything else in the world. And even if you have seen pictures of when you get there, you can't imagine it. It's so amazing. So being on the Drake, people should feel that we do it all the time, and it is still a good and safe and fun and good way to go down to.
And you mentioned it's safe, right? Like nowadays, we've got such modern forecasting, and we've got all the tools and data that we need. We're in communication with other ships, and not just our own expedition tourist vessels, but the research ships that are going down there, the supply ships that are going to the state. Everybody's in communication, right? So we know exactly what's happening, where it's happening, when it's happening. So we're never gonna cross a Drake in unsafe conditions, right? So that's a great point you brought up. We talked about ships, and we talked about a little bit about the stabilizers, all that kind of stuff. We are seeing a lot of these older ships phased out. There are a lot of newer modern ships and everything, but these older ships, the Sea Spirit, the Plancius, the Ortelius, the Ocean Nova, like all these ships, they still the Santa Helena, like these are all ships that are not unsafe going through the Drake. They just might be a little lumpier or uncomfortable than some others, but they're not bad. You and I have done many trips on the Sea Spirit before.
It's still great as well. And I mean, some ships, Ocean Nova doesn't have stabilizers, but it still goes through. You just have to look a little bit more at the window of when to cross over these things, especially if they do the South Georgia trip as well. You just have to modify the days a little bit depending on, okay, let's go now. Now it's good and calm. Or, okay, we need to leave one day later. We get an extra day in South Georgia. Or we can leave one day earlier and get an extra day in Antarctica just to make it good and safe. And that's what you do. And that's what expedition is as well.
Do you think it's worth people? This is a question for both of you. Is it worth people picking a ship solely based off of how it crosses the Drake Passage, or do you think that there's all these other factors first and then you just take what you get when it comes to the Drake?
I think it's not the most important part by any stretch of the imagination. I think if you can find a trip that's in your budget and in your timeline and ticks every other box, but like maybe doesn't have a stabilizer, just take some extra seasickness medication or throw another patch on, drink some water, drink a ginger ale. I wouldn't pick my trip based on whether the ship had stabilizers or not. It wouldn't even really be a thought in my mind.
I do agree as well. I think more is, what is it that you're aiming to see and do in Antarctica? Is your main aim to have as much time outside as possible, much activities as possible? Or is your thing to have it luxury, nice, you want a bigger boat? Or what is your aim? That is what I would aim for first, and then see which different ships can do what in that case. I say the Drake.
Brings up a great point. These older ships without stabilizers, they do tend to be, I think, the more, I don't want to say adventurous companies. They are a little bit more adventurous, right? And there's this whole like, smaller ships can go places, bigger ships can't. That's a bit of a fallacy, right? That's not as accurate as possible. We'll cover that too.
Up to 200 people, they can go pretty much the same places.
They're like, they can sneak into, bays that other ships can't. Like, I've been on big ships. They just anchor like 600 meters a little bit further out. It's really not that big. A little bit of a longer Zodiac ride. No, but and like I said, these are all getting phased out, and there are newer ships that have still modern stabilizers, but some are better than the others. And you mentioned the bow design, right? We look at
ships.
The X-bow ships, and that's going to lead into sort of our next little topic about it. We just kind of want to go over also that the reason that I really want everybody to have a Drake Lake home is because then you get to like party and celebrate and have some fun, right? That's but also I think people don't understand that coming down the Drake Passage, it's not just sitting and waiting for you to get through. There's lectures and presentations. There's mandatory biosecurity stuff. There's our briefing for arriving in Antarctica, how we have to behave, all these sorts of things. But also like, it's a great time to meet your fellow passengers, to sort of mingle, get to know each other, build some group camaraderie and community
especially if you
sense.
travel by yourself. Many people travel by themselves. It's a great time to get to know them Instead of, if you didn't have the Drake passage, you just right straight into it, you might not have met that friend that you're going to make during the trip. So, yeah.
So I think that this is why we say it starts when you step on board. And the Drake is such a huge part of it because there's a lot that happens during the Drake. And when you do like a fly cruise, the rest of that's always a little bit rushed. You land at the airport, you do all these briefings, you fly in and boom, you're on your way, right? So
yeah.
You've worked fly cruises before?
I've done that as well. I did last year as well. I did them. We were almost successful every time. It's always, because people thinking if it's bad weather over the Drake and they worried about it, it's probably also bad weather up in the sky, which means can the plane even fly then, or can it land even? If you're worried about the weather, there can be still problems also on land when flying. Maybe not while you fly, but maybe you can't land. So that can also be either you have to wait and your trip get late, or you can't get off the ship as early either. So you have to definitely account for those things much more. So with flight home and things, so down there, you still have to add those extra days anyway, as if you would going over the Drake. So for me, it's up to of course, the passenger what they want to do. But I feel the Drake is reliable more than the fly-ins.
I agree. And we don't want to put anybody down who's saying, I am not crossing the Drake. I am so susceptible. I'm scared. I get that. And there are fly options, and we're more than happy to accommodate you. And we do have a planned episode on flying versus sailing. And it's worth touching on specifically in this episode. But like Ida's saying, the fly cruisers are much more susceptible to delays and cancellations than the Drake passage sailings are.
Yeah, but as long as you prepare for that from the beginning, absolutely, it's a good way of doing it too. So, yeah.
And all the companies have contingency plans. They book hotels extra on the beginning and after the trip. But we did see a lot of issues with fly cruises this last season. I would say almost half of them had delays or cancellations. We don't want to go too deep into it. We'll save it for the episode. But it is something to be mindful of, and we'll cover another episode. But if you're listening to this saying, I don't want to do it, we get it. We're here for you. We're more just saying like, hey, maybe it's not as bad as you think, because the blogs that were written 10 years ago were written on ships that don't even operate in Antarctica anymore. Now you've got ships like the Ultramarine. There's just these ships. It's like you don't even feel it these days anymore.
I was on a ship that was 8-meter waves, and we still went in 13 knots. In the older ships, then maybe, it was 5-meter waves, and we were going in maximum 5 knots, sometimes even backwards have happened in some ships. So it is good. Yeah.
They're built for it. These new ships are all built for it. Let's also talk a little bit about cabin location, because this is going into the, sort of the preparation stages. Yes. People often say, I want a midship cabin as in the middle as possible, or as low as possible.
That is the best, I would probably say, for if you're really, really afraid with the waves and things. But still, even if you would be further a little bit back, but low, that's still also really good.
I was going to say on all these X-bows.
I
was going to say in the X-bows, I usually stay on deck 4 aft, right? Yeah. I think that even aft is better on these X-bows. And these are a lot of the ships are coming out. We got the Mawson, the Sylvia Earle, the Greg Mortimer, Ocean Victory, Ocean Albatross.
Yeah,
Ocean Explorer. These are all the X-bow ships. If you're wondering what these are the Infinity class Bilstein built X-bow ships, right? Aft is awesome. My wife gets very seasick, and we always stay aft, and she's totally fine. Yeah. The other thing is you don't want to be in the bow on any ship, and sometimes it's the pickings. And again, the X-bows are way better than some of the other ones. But sometimes if you wait to book, like you don't have any other choice. The earlier you book, the better off you are at requesting a cabin location. But one thing I do run into a lot is that people always hear they want to be as low as possible. And while that is true, it makes the ride more comfortable. There's trade-offs, right? Because you always find deck 3 is always your portholes. Deck 4 is usually your windows. And then deck 5, 6, 7 are usually your balconies. Some ships like the X-bows are deck 4 balconies. But if you want a balcony and you want to be on deck 3, like it doesn't work out that way. You'd be in a submarine at that point. But also, I don't think the deck level matters as much as the forward or back position, because I always tell people, like, if they don't get a deck 4 and the only thing left is deck 6, maybe I should consider another trip. Listen, there's no different. You're talking about like a 4 or 5 meter difference in height. Like if every cabin is 4 or 5 meters, you're talking about a 12-meter difference going from floor to floor. Actually, 8 meters, really. If you're going to get sick on deck 6, you're getting sick on deck 4. There's
Yeah.
not, you know what I mean? Like
It's true. Yeah.
It's too small of a difference.
And again, how much time really do you gonna spend in your cabin? Like we said,
Thank
there's
you.
so much
Thank
things
you.
going on. There's so much stuff happening all the time. And actually, it's
Yeah.
not in your room gonna hang. Yeah, you're gonna sleep there. Maybe, okay, fine. You might sleep a little bit bad the first and the night or maybe second night. But that's it. And then we're getting down to the peninsula or where we're going, or if we're going to Falklands or South Georgia, then it's calmer again. And it's so again, as I say, it's fine to take a cabin further forward as well. It's just maybe that one night you don't sleep as well, but that's the only hours. Rest of those 2 days, you're having so much activities going on.
Even
Yeah,
the most
it's constant.
introverted people spend time outside their cabins way more than they expected. One, because lectures, presentations, all that stuff. But also, I like my alone time. Don't get me wrong. I'm a very extroverted person, but I need a minute to recharge my social batteries. And I'll go to my cabin and I'll hang out there for 5 minutes. I'm like, shoot, they're playing Codenames upstairs. I'm totally going to miss out. And like, I got to go up there. I got to go play.
I gotta go.
I got to go. I got to be out there. I got to see what's going on. Even after all the time
the
that's down
FOMO kicks
there.
in.
Yeah, so there's always something going on to keep you busy. And like Ida says, you're not in your cabin that often. Really just to shower, sleep, and change. That's about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
even it is. Maybe after, your activities, that's the time when I used to have a little nap before the next activity because it's so much stuff happening. But then it's calm and nice. Although I do recommend instead to then have maybe a window and maybe the balcony so you can go out there yourself and sit there and watch it. Maybe you're hearing, oh, it's whale out on the port side. Oh, you're having maybe a balcony on the port side. You can just run out there right away. You don't have to go out. There's pros and cons for everything.
I'm going to apologize preemptively to whatever company the response is, but do you have a worst ship you've ever been on?
Yeah.
You can say it. You can say it. It's totally fine.
But yes, it was a ship that I was on that I canceled my Antarctic season on because I didn't want to go on it in Antarctica. But it was because the engine stopped working literally every second day, all the time. And they said to me, okay, yeah, we can definitely not use this engine because it will never work and it would be super dangerous. We can only use it in really, really emergency, just to get to shore. And then I woke up the next morning and they tell me, oh, by the way, yeah, our main engine stopped, so we need to use this other one. And we go into Greenland and we were just,
is the ship still in service?
Kind of. It's been sold. Bought by someone to set it up again, and then it was sold again. And now because
you can tell us, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Well, it was Polar Pioneer and Polar Athena.
Yeah.
Because we changed the name.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, no.
The thing is,
we don't deal
it's
with
a strong. It was a strong ship, and I liked the bridge was massive. It was a lot of good stuff with it, but that engine is not. I was not trusting it, and there was so much stuff happening. Sometimes they put the gear forward, we were going backwards. They had emergency towing system out all the time. It was just not reliable. But also, it wasn't the thing that I felt unsafe. It's maybe not that, but it was more also, hey, we have a guest here. I cannot plan a trip and trust that I can make this trip for these guests because the ship might not work and take us there.
Well, if you're listening to the show and now you want to avoid the Polar Pioneer, I will tell you there's a 99.59999% chance. But that's not in our main demographics search house, right? Those are typically private charters and stuff. Yeah, or whatever. I was going to see if there was a mainstream one. I mean, nowadays, like I think reputation-wise,
my favorite is not the luxury ones. My favorite ones are actually these older ships that have been on for a while. Maybe don't have the stabilizers. But the thing is, they have character. The crew, the team, the bridge team, they are so solid, so knowledgeable, so good that place feels like a home. And I think that's what I like more than these maybe super new, super luxurious trips where you can't go there. I can't sit down and talk to a guest. I can't do this and I can't do that. I feel, my favorite ones are more these older with character.
Yeah. I agree. I think that's why the Santa Helena is such a good fit for you because it's going to be that old school, rustic experience.
But
it's still
big ship in one way for the size. No, it's going to be amazing.
And she's proven. She's a proven vessel, right? So I think it's going to be, that's the vibe we're going to go for on it. That's what we've been working really hard to sort of facilitate is that adventurous kind of experience and the bridge.
It's an expedition vessel. It's not a cruise ship.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
And a lot of these companies with their new fancy ships, the Quarks, the Polar Latitudes, we always say that we did an whole episode on what the difference between the companies are. And they are still expedition companies at their cores. And they just provide now the luxury vessels with a little more creature comforts on board, like Albatross, who now sold to Polar Latitudes. They always said something along the lines of, we're an expedition company with a taste of Scandinavian flair. We're on an expedition, and then it's like tea time with scones and Nordic tea time. It was nice. So, but I think, these older vessels, there are some that are not operating anymore that were infamously horrible in the Drake, the Ocean Atlantic being one of them. I don't think the Ocean Nova is all that great, but again, it's a different experience. Like, you're not booking the Ocean Nova to cross that ship comfortably, to cross the Drake comfortably in that ship. You're booking that ship because it's a very low passenger capacity and it's a great expedition vessel.
Yeah.
Solid
absolutely.
crew, solid company, all that. So the ship matters in terms of length and size. We're not talking passenger capacities, because then look, you and I kind of work in the same sort of class. Have you ever worked for the 200 passenger plus vessels with like the Penants, the Silver Seas, those?
Yeah,
have you worked with those?
I've worked with Penant, but they kept it down to 200. I have done with Seabourn, the 600 passenger one, but I didn't do that in Antarctica. I did that up in Arctic. But the 200 passengers with Penant, like the Icebreaker, for example, which is, of course, an amazing ship. They can really go where no other ship for sure can go because it's a proper icebreaker. But even we got stopped actually this last year with 6 meters thick ice and couldn't even get to the emperor penguins. So if you're thinking, even if we have the strongest ships down there, you still don't know if we can get everywhere, of course. But there is more about also maybe that, okay, we got late to our activity because we went through the ice. Well, but then the activity might not happen because the food and other things is more important. So this comes again to, depending what trip you want to choose, is your priority going to the activities and things, or is it more maybe a food experience together with being out there and things? Like, it's I would do the research a lot about, what is it you want to do and see down there?
For sure, because those ships, like, right, because Penant, even though they might only have 200, they don't do split landings, versus a company that might do split landings. So, you're going on a nice, comfortable ship. And I just saw this get posted up in another Antarctica group where it was all like Silver Sea, butlers, and caviar. And they were focusing on all of this, and all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, save that for another trip. Save that for your European river cruise. You're going to Antarctica. Let's make sure that we're doing split landings outside twice a day. And the point I was just trying to get at with the ship size is that a lot of these ships they're multifaceted, where they operate in Antarctica, but they have much larger vessels by actual size because they typically hold 6, 7, 8, 900 passengers in their other destinations. Like they might go working around the Mediterranean, or they might be working up in Alaska, or they might be working in other parts of the world that don't have passenger capacity limitations on the operation. So you'll see these Penant ships and these Silver Sea ships, they are massive, and they make the X-bows look like toy ships in port.
Yeah.
And of course they're going to handle the Drake Passage better. Of course they're going to ride better through 5, 6, 7, 8 meter swells, which is what we're kind of used to seeing. But you do have a hindrance on your expedition experience because you have more passengers and their focus is a little bit different. So those are parts of the considerations when booking a trip. And you might say to yourself, well, I want the best trip going through the Drake Passage. Okay, what else comes along with that though? What is your main focus? And that goes back to, would you rather pick a ship based on its ability to cross the Drake? Or like Nikki said, it wouldn't be the most important thing. I would say that if you get down to a couple different options that fit your criteria for budget, timing, itinerary, and you're looking at 2 different ships, one being brand new, one being a little bit older, and you are really concerned about the Drake, okay, let's have that conversation and say, maybe we go with the newer ship. And if you say, no, I'm okay with not doing, certain ships might do like 5 a.m. landings in South Georgia where the other ship won't, because that's just not in the DNA or the lane of the company. Then we can have that conversation. But picking the ship and picking the stabilizers, it's obviously worth the conversation, but I would put it lower on the priority of what I'm looking for. That's for sure.
Yeah,
I agree.
One question that we get a lot is what time of year the Drake Passage is at its best and at its worst. Do you have anything to say about that?
I mean, the best time is always a little bit the high, maybe summer. So, December, January is tend to be a little bit more stable weather in that case. Could be a little bit
Okay.
more wind and cooler, of course, because it can still be snowing and things in October, November. Even if that's actually my favorite time, because everything is white and pristine. And whilst incoming then, of course, in February, March, it's not as white and pristine, but you have the chick. It's always pros and cons. For weather, do tend also then later March, more weather usually tends to come. It's more
Okay.
often these storms come back in. So it's more often that you maybe have to go through a little bit more rougher break, or between South Georgia and Antarctica.
But
It can often be more rough.
we always tell people, I've seen the best drakes in November and the worst drakes in November. I've seen the best drakes in December. I've seen the worst. Like, you know, you can.
You never know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
you never know.
I
You can't predict it.
I really want to create like a data set. I want everybody to submit when they crossed and what the drake passage. Now in the era of AI and data consolidation, putting out a survey just says like, when did I cross the drake passage? Was it a Drake Lake, or was it, I just maybe rate it from 1 to 10 and then build a bell curve on it? Because in my experience, I've never seen a strong enough correlation throughout a season to say, okay, this is when the Drake passage is most likely going to be a lake, and this is when it's most likely to be a shake. We do see weather systems again a little bit on the early November, late March. Those weather systems are very important when planning South Georgia trips because of how exposed it is out there. You see the Falklands landings get canceled more often. But the Drake, you can't say,
true.
okay,
It doesn't have to be a bad Drake. It just might be, I could say, it's a little bit maybe more and more storms in that area, but not, it doesn't have to be bad Drakes. It can still just be normal. You still have to cross.
And I think that people need to understand the normal Drake by,
it's true. Yeah.
My favorite, and we're gonna circle back on what I was about to say, because it's such a fun thing, and you, I'm sure, as an expedition leader, have done this so many times where we're in a Drake that people are getting sick in, and you stand up as the expedition leader or whoever's doing the recap for that or something, and they're always trying to get the vibe going. How's the Drake passage? How you guys doing? How you holding up? And people are leaning over. They're like, oh, this is a rough. And you ask them what they think that this rates from a 1 to 10, and they're like, oh, it's a 7. Oh, it's an 8. And then you ask the guides in the back of the room, and you go, how would you rate this Drake? And they all go 3, 4.
Yeah,
like,
so true. So true.
What some passengers might consider a really bad Drake is actually just the normal Drake. That might intimidate people a little more than it should, and I'm not intending to do that.
No.
But let's say 1 being a dead smooth Drake and 10 being we're not crossing. 7 being like, all right, 7 is when you start asking, do we have the right ship to do this? And the newer ships, like you said, are like, yeah, no problem. And some of the other ships are like, okay, we're going to wait 2 days. I would say that a 4 or 5 is our normal. A 4 or 5, even a 6 sometimes that's the normal Drake for us.
Yeah,
so
average.
To circle back on what Ida was saying about the time of the year, you might see more 4, 5s and 6s.
Yes.
Through the earlier parts of the seasons and the late parts of the season. Yeah, right. More 4, 5s and 6s consistently on those parts. And you might see more 3, 4s and 5s earlier in the season. You're still seeing normal Drakes. But those 7s and those 8s, those can pop up at any time during the year without warning, without forecasting, without any prediction whatsoever. Does that sort of wrap it up a little more accurately?
Yeah. And what I usually say is that I actually spent almost 400 days. I've been more than 1 year on the Drake, if I count all my times are gone. It is, because I almost have 100 trips. So it's like 200 back and forth. So 2 days, each one. So it's almost soon 400 days. So if the Drake was so terrible, would I then really do this? No. So I would say, go for it and do it.
You're built different, Ida. You're built different. We always like to say as guides that the Drake Passage is our commute to work. Some people sit in traffic on the freeway. We cross the Drake Passage.
Yeah.
One thing is, people who do get concerned about it do know that there's always a doctor on board. There's always somebody on board who can treat it. We have, there's Dramamine, there's scopolamine patches. Consult with your doctor beforehand. This is not considered pharmaceutical advice. I have a buddy who swears by those relief bands, the ones that shoot like a shock in your wrist. He swears by them. He says when we go out fishing, he gets seasick, and he swears as soon as he turns it on, it's over. There's also like that shot, and the shot is just like an anti-nausea thing. And we had this one girl on our charter December 7th, like 3 years ago, who was down like down, down, wasn't feeling good. She took the scopolamine, she took the pill, and then she met with the doctor, and the doctor gave her the shot right in the butt cheek. And 2 hours later, she was at the bar doing shots. I'm not even kidding you. From one shot to shots. Shots. So if you are feeling a little concerned, there are doctors on board.
And they always help a lot with the seasickness, depending what you need. All I would say, don't mix too much. That's the only thing that can go wrong. But otherwise, yeah. And all the guides, us and all the doctors, everyone, they know a lot about it. So they would be there helping if you are.
And they'll tell you all about what you can do, like she said, to be on board. You know, you typically, everyone wants to instinctively lie down. That actually could be worse. You want to go out to a window. You want to stare at the horizon. You want to get back. You want to get low. So and this is all told to you on board. Also, during your introduction to the ship, the first thing you love doing, you love showing the Drake Passage.
Of course you do. You always show the pictures of the bow. So maybe actually it's quite fun to get a Drake as well. If you're a photographer, it's quite cool to take those shots when the bow goes down into the waters and you're flooding over. Pretty cool too.
We mentioned that there's like all these apps and stuff now. And if you go to our website, letsgopolar.com, you can see, I think it's under cool content. It's actually the Drake Passage Live. What we did was I embedded the Windy app on my website so that they could even go look right now. Even the season's down, like season's not going on right now. And if they're ever just sitting in their office and they're curious, and they want to go look what the Drake Passage is doing, they can just go right on our website. It's under the Drake Passage Live. There's a little key legend down there that shows what the colors each mean. Just know that it's sort of like blue and greens are good and reds and purples are bad. So, and it's also wind and swell, right? Because you could get swell. Like you could have not a lot of wind.
Yeah.
And you could have 5-meter swells at a 25-second interval and you won't even feel it. It's that short period stuff, right?
When I say, those 17 meters, that was a massive swell. But actually, no one was seasick. Maybe one, but no one was. Because it's depending on how it is.
Do you guys have any other thoughts on the Drake Passage and sort of what people should be thinking about when planning, picking ships or anything? That kind of wraps it all up nicely, I think.
Yeah. I think that's we nailed it. Good job, everybody.
Nailed it.
What do you say? People should do it. See it as the adventure, and they will be fine. And they will regret it if they choose not to go into Antarctica because they're afraid of the Drake Passage. They should not be.
Now, we will say with the fly option, there is the option to fly one way and cruise the other. So you can minimize it, but you still get to experience it. And I think that that's a really good one, too. I thank you for bringing up that you can experience it, but you could also skip it. So you could do a little bit of both.
Yeah.
And that could be a really good compromise for some people.
I would sail down and then fly out.
I think so,
but
too.
It's also fun, although if you could fly, actually sailing back is also fun because then you've gotten to know everyone. And that's usually also the fun time with like your friends also. So it's good, positive.
Yeah. The bingo, there's like usually bingo, the crew does something. It's fun.
Karaoke.
No, I think that was a really good, solid Drake Passage episode. Definitely something that needs to be addressed. I feel like we could talk about the Drake Passage for hours because we got sea stories and stuff. I remember, Phil was on the show a bunch. Phil's been one of my most frequent guests, and he was telling me old school days. It was actually, I think it was on the expedition, which is now, right?
Yeah.
How that was G Adventure's old ship.
Yeah.
How it used to be so bad sometimes in one of those older ships that like the passengers were like in their cabins and the crew would be walking around like opening a door, throw them a sandwich and then close the door. Like that's how bad it would get in some of those older ships. And it's not like we're not strapping you in the beds anymore. It's not that. There's so much we can go on about it. Good footwear is always good. Consult with your doctor beforehand.
I remember there was someone who was wearing flip-flops the first trip. I don't know.
Oof.
There was someone telling you that. I remember.
I wasn't a rule follower in the beginning, so I think we can end it here. I think that sort of sums up the Drake Passage. Like I said, we could talk about it for hours. We got plenty of sea stories, and there's so much to know. But I think if you're in the planning stages, this is definitely something that you're going to want to hear about. Maybe kind of lean one way or the other versus your ship, versus your itinerary and stuff like that. I guess we always do this. I'm always wrapping the show up, and I think of one more thing. We get a lot of questions. People who ask, can I fly over the Drake Passage, but then sail to South Georgia and back? And I just, the Southern Ocean is just as...
Oh my God.
as
Yeah.
Drakey.
Yeah, on the trip that I did, the South Georgia trip, I got so unbelievably seasick on the passage from Ushuaia or to the Falklands, like to the point where I was like throwing up in the hallways, which is, I don't usually get seasick. I do a lot of scuba diving. I'm on ships a lot. Like, I do not get seasick. I was a mess of a human being. And
You always are a
I
mess
was
of a human being.
Okay, valid, fair. But this was in a less charming way. And I was like, for the Drake, I was fine. I didn't take any different medication, and I don't know if it's just because I was more accustomed to being on the ship. But yeah, that Southern Ocean will sneak up on you.
Yeah.
It's a good
It
one.
can be just as bad as a Drake crossing. It's really
Yeah.
pretty bad.
But of course, if you want to skip 2 legs maybe on the trip, then yeah, of course, yeah.
No, just do it the whole way then, right? Just go full send. If you're going to cross the Southern
Yeah.
Ocean, Scotia Sea,
Full
you might as well
send.
just full send it and do the Drake, right? Nobody wears t-shirts that say I survived the Scotia Sea. Like
Now it sounds like we have a new market. It sounds like we should start putting out some shirts.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, merchandise.
Ida, thank you so much for
anytime.
doing this with us. I can't wait to have you back on the show. You absolutely nailed. Have you done a podcast before? You nailed it. You absolutely nailed it.
It was fun. And I'm looking forward now really much to Antarctica as well. Still have
Well, we'll send
Greenland
you the
and
link so you
Antarctica
can go
and
listen to
Svalbard
some
more,
episodes.
but yeah.
You know, somebody had asked me, and I don't think that they were much into like polar research. It was more my friends. They had asked me where the term the Drake Shake came from for the name of the podcast. This is a great opportunity to address that before we sign off, right? Because you either get a Drake Lake or you get a Drake Shake. So it all comes.
So what it comes down to.
God, we need to start posting these videos. We need to start posting the videos because the level of disgust that Nikki just looked at me with is just so demoralizing.
It was the voice that you chose to give that information was
right.
I'm getting bullied. All right, we're going to end it on me being bullied. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you to our awesome guests. Thank you, Nikki, for another great episode. Co-host Nikki, who was finally out of quarantine. Go enjoy the real world. Ida, thank you so much. I can't wait to see you this coming season. I'll see you down on Terra Nova. I can't wait to have you back on the show. I know you get a little bit of a break, so maybe we can sneak you in on an episode before you get back to the wonderful world of guiding. We would definitely want to ping you when we do the Svalbard episode. You're our Svalbard
for sure
connoisseur. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at info@thedrakeshake.com. If you're interested in booking a trip, you can always visit our website, letsgopolar.com. We're here to help you out. We got some new tools that we're building for the website. We've got our mailing list going out. If you have any questions, feel free to email us.
We also have a new WhatsApp chat.
Oh, yeah. Great point.
Yeah.
Yes. If you're interested in joining our exclusive VIP deal discounts WhatsApp chat, we created that this week. That was mainly because we know that emails go to spam and we know that Facebook posts sometimes don't show because of the algorithm. And these days, the deals we get usually have just a few beds left on them. So we want to make sure that you are seeing them before everybody else is. So if you got a question about that, you want to join the WhatsApp group, send us an email. It's info@thedrakeshake.com and we will send you a link or a QR code to join that WhatsApp chat. Other than that, stay tuned. We got a charter announcement coming out pretty soon for December 2027, and we got some other cool stuff down the line. And once again, thank you to everybody for tuning in, and thanks to our special guests. My name is Neil Drake, and that was The Shake.
If you found today's episode helpful, don't forget to subscribe. Every week, we discuss a new topic in depth. And if you have any questions, feedback, or just want to say hey, feel free to drop us a line at info@thedrakeshake.com. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you in the next episode.